Everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're gonna start with a brief since our panelist is here and the moderator. So, wait. Actually, we're still waiting for Mr. Shukri, but I'm not sure because he is not quite responsive. So I think we can start. I think maybe Nashua can do like one round of flow, like to show the moderator and panelists how our event will be, and then we can explain on how the panel discussion session will be.
Yeah, sure. I can just go through the script briefly.
Mr. Rizal and Miss Huda and Miss Prasna, are you there?
Hi, Puteri, I'm here.
Hello, hi.
That my background is flipped in the wrong way. Is it okay for you guys?
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Okay, all right, great.
Before that, how about Miss Huda? Are you okay on your side?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. All right. I think while waiting for Mr. Shukri, we can just start one round so that all of you have the brief idea on how our event will be.
All right. Okay, so I'll start first. Before we start, I would like to remind on a few things. Ensure your Zoom name in the meeting is your first name or full name. For participants of Zoom, please sign in with your name. All participants are encouraged to switch on your cameras. Kindly ensure that your microphone remains muted throughout the entire session, and any questions you have for the speakers, please leave them in the chat box. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to our honorable guests, our moderator, Ms. Prasna Nair, our panelists for the day, Mr. Muhammad Rizal Azmi, Ms. Nurul Huda Matnoor, and Mr. Muhammad Shukri, and fellow participants. My name is Nashwa, and I will be your MC for today. First and foremost, I would like to express our utmost gratitude to everyone for attending today's webinar, Sustainable and Affordable Energy for a Better Future, in conjunction with the Road to Rights organization's G17 University Ambassadors Consortium. Before we start the event, allow me to elaborate a bit more about this program. The Road to Rights is an award-winning youth-led voluntary organization established in 2009 in Sri Lanka by the abolition of a childhood dream to serve humanity from the age of 8, aimed at supporting and empowering young people on creating opportunities, skills development, creativity, and innovation by taking a human rights-based approach to its peace and sustainable development. The organization was recognized and awarded in various international and local platforms, including the United Nations SDG Action Award out of 125 countries in 2018 in Germany, and International Human Rights Hero Award in 2012 in Belgium. As for the G17 University Ambassadors Consortium, it is a global fellowship program initiated by the Road to Rights organization with its ultimate vision to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development within the university community. Currently, it is established in 14 countries. G17 is dedicated towards empowering university students on sustainable development goals to become the next generation of young professionals and make SDGs a reality through its 4 pillars, which are capacity building, leadership, policy advocacy, and action. G17 University Ambassadors Consortium has given the opportunity for ambassadors where they could initiate a project in order to overcome a prevailing issue in their university, country, or globally. Sustainable and Affordable Energy for a Better Future is a project led by the G17 Ambassador for Affordable and Clean Energy, Puteri Liyana Sofea from the International University of Malaya-Wales, to increase knowledge, public awareness, motivation, and understanding on SDG 7 towards the youth participants in helping Malaysia to achieve a better life by 2030. Before we move on to the main event, I'd like to call upon Ms. Shalini Jayakumaran, Chairperson of G17 University Ambassador Consortium Malaysia Chapter, to give a few words and officiate our event. So then Ms. Shalini would give the welcoming remarks. Okay, and then afterwards, thank you so much, Ms. Shalini. Now allow me to introduce our moderator and panelists. Our moderator for today is Ms. Prasna Nair. She is the Climate Change and Carbon Executive at YTL-SV Carbon. As for our panelists, we have Mr. Muhammad Rizal Azmi, who holds the position as Business Development Manager at Bureau Veritas Group. Next, we have Ms. Nurul Huda Matnoor. She is the Managing Director at the HSE Group of Companies, which stands for Honored Sustainability and Excellence. She is also the President of the Malaysian Environmental Professional Practitioner Society, or MAPS. And last but not least, we have Mr. Muhammad Shukri, who is a representative from the Malaysian Nuclear Society. Now, without further ado, I'll pass the floor to our speakers for the main event, which is the networking session. How can youth contribute towards sustainable energy? So after this, I'll pass the floor to the moderator and panelists for the session. And then after the session ends, we'll have a 5-minute break. So the next slide, okay. So we'll now take a 5-minute break. After the 5-minute break, we'll have our Q&A session. All right, okay, so this is when all the participants will return. So during the 5-minute break, the questions will be given to the panelists, so they can, you guys can like prepare answers if you need to. So all the questions will be given to the panelists beforehand, before the Q&A session starts. Okay, and then after the Q&A session ends, I would like to invite our ambassador, Puteri Liyana Sofea, to give the closing remarks and say a few words. So Puteri will give the vote of thanks. And then after that, thank you so much, Puteri. I'd like to ask all participants to switch on your cameras for a brief photo session. But before that, I'd like everyone to scan this QR code to give us some feedback on today's discussion. Whether it's positive or negative, we'd love to know your thoughts about today's event. And then I'll pass the floor to Aina to lead the photo session. Okay, so we'll take a few photos. And then thank you everyone for taking your precious time to participate in our event today. We really hope you enjoyed this session and were able to take away important key points on how us as youth can contribute towards sustainable energy for a better future. Okay, and then that's the end of the event.
Okay, so I think I will brief about the panel discussion session. So basically in that session, the moderator will take over and it will be an interactive session. So for example, for one question, we allow each panelist to give their opinion on that question. But we roughly estimate that on one question, around 7 minutes in total, so that we can cover a lot of topic. If like the panelist exceeding or anything, one of my team will contact the moderator like to cut it down a bit so that we can move on to the next session. Okay, basically, so that's all for the panelist discussion. And then for the Q&A, the MC will lead. We will, during the 5-minute break, we will review all the questions, maybe around 2 questions per panelist, and then we will send it to the MC so that the MC will take over on the Q&A session. So far, that's all. Is there any issue or like question from your side?
Sorry, just an update for the moderator panel discussion. If there's any problem regarding the panelists exceeding the time limit, it's either will be me, Shafiq, or Masha will contact the moderator directly to the Zoom chat box, and then we will tell you if the panelist is exceeding the time limit.
Okay, got it. Great.
All right.
Putri, what time are we admitting the participants?
2:50.
Okay.
Hi, may I know if Mr. Shukri already in the Zoom? Mr. Shukri, the panelist, are you there? Okay.
Hai Putri, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Okay.
Sehat?
Sehat, Alhamdulillah. Basically, we just do some short dry run just now on the flow of event.
Okay, it's okay. I can see from here.
Alright.
We start at 3, right?
Yeah,
So-
but at 2:50 we can start to invite the participants to join.
Okay, sounds good. So I just switch off the video and audio for now?
Yeah, sure.
Aku bising. Ada budak-budak ni.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before we start, I would like to remind on a few things. Ensure your Zoom name in the meeting is your first name or full name. For participants of Zoom, please sign in with your name. All participants are encouraged to switch on your cameras. Kindly ensure that your microphone remains muted throughout the entire session. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat box throughout the event, and the speakers will answer them during the Q&A session. Assalamualaikum, and a very good afternoon to our honorable guests, our moderator, Ms. Prasna Nair, our panelists for the day, Mr. Muhammad Rizal Azmi, Ms. Nurul Huda Matnor, and Mr. Muhammad Shukri, and fellow participants. My name is Nashuha, and I will be your MC for today. First and foremost, I would like to express our utmost gratitude to everyone for attending today's webinar, Sustainable and Affordable Energy for a Better Future, in conjunction with the Road to Rights organization's G17 University Ambassadors Consortium. Before we start the event, allow me to elaborate a bit more about this program. The Road to Rights is an award-winning youth-led voluntary organization established in 2009 in Sri Lanka by the evolution of a childhood dream to serve humanity from the age of 8, aimed at supporting and empowering young people on creating opportunities, skills development, creativity, and innovation by taking a human rights-based approach towards peace and sustainable development. The organization was recognized and awarded in various international and local platforms, including the United Nations SDG Action Award out of 125 countries in 2018 in Germany, and the International Human Rights Hero Award in 2012 in Belgium. As for the G17 University Ambassadors Consortium, it is a global fellowship program initiated by the Road to Rights organization with its ultimate vision to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development within the university community. Currently, it is established in 14 countries. G17 is dedicated towards empowering university students on sustainable development goals to become the next generation of young professionals and make SDGs a reality through its 4 pillars, which are capacity building, leadership, policy advocacy, and action. G17 University Ambassadors Consortium has given the opportunity for ambassadors where they could initiate a project in order to overcome a prevailing issue in their university, country, or globally. Sustainable and Affordable Energy for a Better Future is a project led by the G17 Ambassador for Affordable and Clean Energy, Puteri Liyana Sofea from the International University of Malaya-Wales, to increase knowledge, public awareness, motivation, and understanding on SDG 7 towards the youth participants in helping Malaysia to achieve a better life by 2030. All right, now before we move on to the main event, I'd like to call upon Ms. Shalini Jayakumaran, Chairperson of G17 University Ambassador Consortium Malaysia Chapter, to give a few words and officiate our event. Is Ms. Shalini in the call? Okay, if Ms. Shalini isn't in the call, can I call upon Ms. Hanis?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Okay, super sorry for our chairperson, Shalini. I think she's having some internet problems, so I guess I'll just take this session. Hi, everyone. A very warm welcome and thank you so much for joining this webinar. I'm Nurhanis. I'm the Vice Chairperson of Operation of G17 University Ambassador Consortium, the Malaysian chapter. I'm so sorry that I can't really open my camera right now because I'm also having some internet issues. So I'll just speak and you guys can just stare at my profile picture if that's okay. And I appreciate very much your support for this event regarding the sustainable and affordable energy for a better future. Here, I would like to thank and congratulate the director of this event, Puteri Liyana Sofea, the SDG7 advocator for G17 UAC 2022, representing International University Malaya-Wales. So as we all are aware, what is SDG7? That actually it targets to ensure that universal access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services, increase substantially the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix, and many more. As far as I know, youth was for sustainable development and key agent for social change, economic growth, and technological innovation. So without further ado, I would like to end my opening remarks and officiate this online forum, hoping that you guys also would gain some knowledge, motivation, and understanding throughout this online forum. Have a beneficial event, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Nurhanis. Now allow me to introduce our moderator and panelists. Our moderator for today is Ms. Prasna Nair. She is the Climate Change and Carbon Executive at YTLSV Carbon. As for our panelists, we have Mr. Muhammad Rizal Azmi, who holds the position as Business Development Manager at Bureau Veritas Group. Next, we have Ms. Nurul Huda Matnor. She is the Managing Director at the HSE Group of Companies, which stands for Honored Sustainability and Excellence. She is also the President of the Malaysian Environmental Professional Practitioner Society, or MEPS. And last but not least, we have Mr. Muhammad Shukri, who is a representative from the Malaysian Nuclear Society. Now, without further ado, I'll pass the floor to our speakers for the main event, which is the networking session. How can youth contribute towards sustainable energy?
Hi, everyone. Okay. Thank you so much, Nasuha. Can you all hear me? Is it everything great? Okay, great. Thank you, Nasuha. All right. Thank you for attending our session today. I understand it's a Saturday at 3 p.m. I would typically be relaxing at home, taking a nap at this time, but if you're here attending the session, great, good for you. Today we're going to be discussing sustainable and affordable energy for the better future. Particularly, our discussion will be focusing on how youth can contribute towards sustainable energy. I think something that we typically debate about, or there's a lot of preconceived notions about when we think about sustainable energy, is that what is it? Because is it renewable energy that can be considered sustainable energy? And if it is all renewable energy considered sustainable? I think that's something that we will be discussing a lot in our session. It's something that I will be kind of asking our panelists so we get a better idea of what it is. I think generally it's important for us to understand that different countries, the idea of sustainable energy in different countries looks different depending on the stage of progress, depending on their geography, and depending on the resources that they have. Because something that is considered sustainable in a country may not be sustainable in a different country. So perhaps without further ado, I'll just dive right into asking our panelists. Perhaps we could start with Mr. Shukri. I think there's a lot of, all these myths with surrounding nuclear, particularly in Malaysia. There's a lot of debate about it. Perhaps you could give us some myths that people have regarding nuclear and why it's considered a myth.
Good afternoon, all. Can you guys hear me? Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm humbly honored to be invited to this Saturday afternoon forum. Like Prasna said, it wasn't a norm for me to be talking about sustainable development and nuclear energy on a Saturday afternoon, but it is what it is, and I'm very happy to see about 46 participants currently online. So yeah, I'm happy to be involved, okay, to be invited. So Prasna asked me myth regarding nuclear. Is it nuclear or renewable? Okay. Okay, so before I go into nuclear, I would like to stress that, okay, I'm teaching renewable energy at University Tenaga Nasional, TNB University. So I know a little bit about renewable energy, and I've seen data and numbers, and I actually am involved with the Japanese counterparts to develop biomass energy in Malaysia. So I would say I have some experience with renewable energy, but having studied renewable energy, I believe that to rely on renewable energy alone for the sustainable development will be not the correct way forward. Okay, so that's one myth that I want to talk about, which is relying on renewable energy 100% for the sustainable development will not be enough for us. That's because renewable energy is intermittent, is unpredictable, and is not sufficient for our local market. So when people talk about nuclear, people have negative stigma, a negative image associated with nuclear, and that is not that is very understandable, because nuclear started from the worst of invention in humankind, which is nuclear weapon. So it's very understandable for humankind to associate nuclear with weapon of mass destruction. While that being said, we have to know that nuclear is an option. Nuclear is the technology option, meaning that it's up to us as a human, as an engineer, as a scientist, as a person to use the technology for the betterment. For example, if I have for example, you can imagine I have a hammer in my hand. I can use the hammer to hit people, to hurt some other people, but at the same time, I can also, or on the other hand, I can also use the hammer to build a house or to make good thing happen for human beings. So the same technology that we have, you can use that for negative aspect of it, or you can use it for the positive development, and that is the same with nuclear. We have the understanding, we have the knowledge about nuclear power. We can use that for peaceful activities, or you can use that for weapon. So that's the dilemma that we have, and for us, it's not such a dilemma. Is very clear. We cannot use nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapon is bad. Nuclear weapon is something that we have to throw away from us. Okay, but what we have is we have the option to use this nuclear power, the power from the atom, for the good, for the development. Okay, so when people talk about nuclear, people think about nuclear weapon, but at the same time, we have to know that there are 500 nuclear power reactors around the world, and about 70% of France, the country, is powered by nuclear. So it is not something that is taboo. It's not something that is not that people don't understand. It has been developed, has been used for more than 60 years. So we know how to use nuclear, and we can use nuclear for the betterment of humankind. Okay.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Shukri. I actually have like a follow-up question.
Okay.
I recently learned that the Fukushima incident was actually caused by natural disaster, because there was, the earthquake, right, which caused the core reactors to fail, right? People have been telling me, hey, it was a natural disaster, so maybe it's the build. Nothing is wrong with the build. Like it was just, triggered by natural disaster. Perhaps in recent years we've made it better. We've progressed technologically. Like, according to your thoughts, what do you think? Do you think that we've progressed enough for us to deploy nuclear energy even amidst, natural disasters happening?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, you are right, Prasna. Fukushima actually happened as a cascading effect of, first you have earthquake in the ocean, which creates a ripple of tsunami wave onto the onshore, and that this tsunami killed thousands of Japanese people, and it's actually also swept through many transmission tower grid. It swept through cars, houses, and things like that. So we have to understand that when Fukushima happened, it was preceding or it was happening after earthquake, which happened maybe for a few seconds, but the tsunami is the one that is that causes many problems in Japan at the time. So yes, you are right. It happened because of after tsunami, but we have also to understand that Fukushima Daiichi it was constructed in 1970s. So it was constructed in 1970s. That means it uses the 1950s and 1960s technology. So you can imagine if you are driving a car and the car is made or the technology from 1950s compared to the car that is developed in 1990s or 2000s, you can see that there are many things that the reactor in Fukushima doesn't have compared to the reactor that is developed after that have. That's why in Fukushima, there are a number of reactors. You have Fukushima Daiichi and also Fukushima Daini. And the same tsunami that swept through Fukushima Daiichi actually crippled Fukushima Daiichi, but not Fukushima Daini. That's because Fukushima Daini is made from a more advanced technology compared to Fukushima Daiichi. Okay, so and at the same time, what happened is the Fukushima Daiichi was scheduled to be decommissioned or to be turned off in 2011. Actually, so the same year that it was supposed to be shut down, the tsunami happened. It crippled. So it's just like orang tua yang sepatutnya retire is just mati lebih awal, something like that. Okay, so the technology is old technology, and then at the same time, they make a mistake, I would say, because before the tsunami happened, there was some concern, some report that says that the diesel generator, which is a backup power for the power plant, it was situated too low, below the tsunami wall. So there was some concern, and they have asked the owner of the plant to correct it. But because Fukushima Daiichi was supposed to close, so the owner was hesitant to correct. So they say, okay, let's close it, then it will be over. I mean, no problem. But problem comes before they were supposed to shut down the reactor. Okay, so that's why it's very unfortunate. But we will say that the same tsunami that crippled Fukushima Daiichi did not cripple Fukushima Daini just because first, we know about the technology, what we have in Daini is better. And second thing, because of they were supposed to relocate the diesel generator, but they did not, just because they thought they will not be a problem. So they make a mistake in that sense, okay? So I would say it's a combination of management looking for ringgit more than listening to the report, safety report. So I think all of these are good lesson learned to the nuclear industry so that we will not repeat that again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Shukri. I think that is a very valuable insight that you've provided. And, I think a lot of us might not even know that it was, an accident. Like, I mean, it was a, disaster, and how much nuclear has progressed since then. Maybe I'll move on to the next question because we have time constriction. Okay, so for the next question, these are all questions that have been submitted by the participants who are attending. So I'm just going to go through them because they seem to be popular questions. Okay, for the second question, I want to ask perhaps Madam Nur Huda, what do you think the youth can do to contribute towards the creation of sustainable grids, sustainable energy, or even educating people about sustainable energy? But basically, what can the youth do about this?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you, Miss Pasna. Okay, for what can youth to contribute on the sustainable energy? Actually, firstly, you need to understand what is the sustainable energy exists. You need to be conscious about what daily tasks that you do, because sustainability is something that involves with the daily task, and then it involved with the what type of energy that we use. So for me, in order you as a youth, as or we are the nations, as a nations want to contribute to the country, we need to start with to be conscious and on what we use for the energy. Because sustainability is about something that we need to just need what we want to use in the current without compromising for the future. So that's why what for my opinion is for the youth is start on the reduce, eliminate. So you need to start with the when you conscious on what type of the activity that you consume the energy, and then you can realize that how much that actually you use the energy. Okay, because we need to measure what is the quantity or something that like okay, how much electricity that we use at our house. It's simple like that. And then how much really we consume the fuels to travels, or is it we have a lot of the activity that actually travel or overseas. So something that we need to realize that before we thinking out of the box or a big picture, we need to start with a small thing but continuous. This is really crucial because a small thing actually that we think with the 32 millions of our peoples, actually it will impact very big. That's why the first thing when we want to talk about the renewable energy, we need to start with the energy efficiency.
I think you're absolutely right. Maybe we can continue the discussion with Mr. Muhammad Rizal. Perhaps do you have anything to add?
Hi, thanks, Ms. Prasna. And I think first and foremost, thanks very much to the committee for inviting me to be part of the panelists today. I hope my microphone is clear. Okay, all right. So yeah, I would agree with what Ms. Nuruda mentioned. I think most importantly for the youth is first to have an awareness of what sustainable energy is, and understand what is going on in the present. We can read the various IPCC reports, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, on climate impact, on the road to reduce climate impact. And we can also study history, on how the Industrial Revolution back in the 1920s is actually currently impacting the planet and the environment today. In addition to that, we can also probably look at the innovations, the inventions, which is happening today, which will be used to actually shape the future for the youth. So we have to be bold, and we have to explore our capabilities, our boundaries, and not be limited to what we have at the moment. I think Mr. Shukri also mentioned earlier that we can't discount all these technologies just because we had, I would say, some issues in the past. So we can keep exploring. For example, in nuclear, there's also this, maybe Mr. Shukri knows a bit more on this, it's a SMR technology, the smaller scale of nuclear rather than the large type used in Fukushima, in Chernobyl, and so on. And this can be used more in distributed kind of systems rather than a centralized large power plant setup. So there's a lot of different ways to do things, a lot of different technologies currently being explored. So these are the things we should, as the youth of today, study more on, be more innovative, and keep exploring. And there may be other technologies that we haven't discovered yet today, which can be used for sustainable energy of tomorrow. Thanks.
Okay, maybe a follow-up on that one. It's interesting that you mentioned SMR. For those of you who are not familiar with SMR, SMRs are small modular reactors. It is something that Singapore is currently considering to implement within their country as well, considering they have limitations in terms of their geography. But some other countries are also looking at it. Speaking of which, from what I've read and from what I understand, SMRs are possible because Singapore fosters R&D and youths are very much involved in R&D. And we understand that Singapore has all these like centers of excellence. They have all these centers studying about solar. They have hydropower centers and all these. Perhaps, how does the pipeline look like for Malaysia in creating similar centers of excellence where the youth can actively participate in, to contribute and to have for us to have human capital in the coming 10, 20 years in the sector of creating sustainable energy? Any one of you? Mr. Shukri, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Prasna. Before I answer that question, I would like to add on what Ms. Nurul Huda and Mr. Muhammad Rizal talk about, which I totally agree with them. Focus on energy efficiency and open your minds to any option that could help us in this regard. At the same time, I would like to ask for the youth of today, you guys, use less energy, focus on energy efficiency, and at the same time, you guys have to voice out what you think to the government, because from the data that I've seen, I mean, like Ms. Nurul Huda said, the little thing that you do can cascade. One person do the right thing, and if all 32 millions of Malaysians do the same thing, then it will have some cascading effect to help the sustainable development. But at the same time, what you ask your government to do is also very important. Okay, if you voice and you voice support for green technology, and you ask the government to invest in green technology, the government of the day, whether it's PH or PN or BN or any other, they will listen to you. So you guys have to remain politically neutral, but send the same message to the government. You want green technology, you want to combat the worst consequence of climate change. So you have to make the message clear to any government that will be in parliament today. Okay, so that's what I want the youth to do. So you have to think about the issue, and you have to fight for what you think is right. You cannot stay silent and let the government decide whatever they want to do. That will not be right, because if you keep silent, the government will listen to the business people, and business people, they listen to their dollar and cent. So in the end, what you want may not be aligned with what the business want. So that's why the youth of today, you guys have to tell a very clear message to the government that you want clean, green technology, and you want to fight the climate change regardless of whoever in the Sri Perdana today. Okay, okay, and then on the question about youth be involved in the R&D for SMR or any kind of the technology, I would say that most of you are, I would say, about 20s, before late teens and early 20s, right? So at this time, you guys are in the process of pursuing your first degree. Okay, so when you pursue your first degree, is if you believe in clean green technology, if you believe in the sustainable development, I would call for you to invest your final year project or your thesis on this kind of topic. So you have to research this kind of topic and produce very good thesis, so that you can use this thesis for your future career, whether you want to do your postgraduate studies in your master's or PhD on the similar study, or you can join the company. Like for example, Ms. Nurul Huda company or Encik Rizal's company, they are working on this green technology. So you can bring up these ideas to the business people for them to develop together with you. For you, I think what's important is to focus on study, and if you have the option to choose your topic for your final year project or your thesis, then choose the topic that align with your sustainable development goal. Okay, Prasna?
Right, thank you. Okay, I'm unmuted, great. Yeah, again, I'll move on right to the next question. Thank you for answering that question. I completely agree with you. I think that's how a lot of us have started. There's that young interest when we're still doing our undergraduate degree, and then we progress into the job world, and then we understand more, and then we explore more, and then we eventually we're here today discussing about topics like this. Okay, so what do you think in Malaysia the current progress is in finding our niche in terms of our renewable energy, or in terms of incorporating sustainable energy within our grids, particularly for businesses to use, or even for daily people, consumers, in making that transition towards adopting to renewable energy? Perhaps we could hear from Mr. Muhammad Rizal.
Okay, sure. I think first off, we are quite blessed that in Malaysia we have made, I think, considerable milestones and achievements in charting our own sustainable future. Although probably we are a bit late or slow, but then no one have actually even considered, installing solar PV panels on your rooftops. If you talk about this 10 to 20 years ago. But now we already have all these various programs deployed by the authorities, by the government. Some of them includes the Feed-in Tariff Program, FIT, by SEDA, by the Sustainable Energy Development Authority. And this caters for various RE technologies such as biomass, biogas, mini hydro. And then there's also the large-scale solar, LSS program, by the Suruhanjaya Tenaga, which is a tender for large-scale solars. And I think it's already in its fourth round of the program. And there's also the ongoing net energy metering, NEM program, where you can actually export excess energy from your solar PV panels back to the grid. So we have made quite a bit of progress there. But I think at the same time, we also have a lot of room still, to improve. And quite easily, we can just look to our neighbors for some inspiration. I think Vietnam, for example, had their own FIT programs for solar as well. And they actually managed to increase their solar capacity, I think just within a few years, to a massive 16,500 megawatts. This is just in a span of few years, from the initial small target of just, if I'm not mistaken, about 850 megawatts. So that's easily a 20 times overachievement, from their target. So I think that leaves something for us to consider and think about when also doing our own programs and initiatives. And I think much closer to home, in the south, in Singapore, they've already installed a large 60 megawatt floating PV plant on the Tengeh Reservoir. So I think in Malaysia, we also have a lot of water bodies, ex-mining areas, lakes, water reservoirs that we can just easily deploy for the same kind of setup. So I think overall we've made quite good progress, but there's still a lot of room to improve as well.
That's true. Speaking of which, so you've spoken about FIT system, large scale solar system, net energy metering. So a big chunk of the main stakeholders or the people who are implementing these things would be Tenaga. Do you think that there might be a conflict of interest, considering Tenaga already has huge sunken investments with grid electricity, the grids that we have now with thermal power?
Well, I'm not from Tenaga, so I can't answer on behalf of them. But I think they have also made their own programs. They have their own subsidiaries doing rooftop solar, doing large-scale solar, and they're also exploring mini hydro, biomass, biogas, and so on. So, and also on the distribution side, if I understand correctly, they're also working on building a grid of the future, which is essentially a smart grid, which should be able to take in more renewables into the grid, because our current grid is, well, a traditional grid. It's not a smart grid. It's not a distributed kind of grid. So these are the things that needs to be improved. The whole ecosystem needs to be improved, in order for us to take in more variable renewable energy into the system.
Okay, sure. I'll move on to the next question that we have, which is actually quite similar to the previous one, which is what are some conflicting factors or what are some things that are stopping our country from widely investing in clean energy resources? Like my question was previously, we have things like conflicts of interest. Do you think the people who, perhaps, Madam Rohuda, you could take this one. Do you think the people who are, developing a renewable energy or sustainable energy in the country, do you think that there is a conflict of interest in any way or form, where, you feel like it should be redirected to different stakeholders or people who don't have direct stake with non-renewable sources currently?
Okay, when you talk about government, firstly, we need to understand that our government is not so stable. So jadi the first facts that you need to understand. So when we talk about the policy maker, we talk about the executor, the enforcement, and also industrial levels. It's quite a conflict in terms of who would make the policy, who make the executions, and also enforcements. Okay, so that's why when you talk about conflict of interest, I cannot say on the behalf of governments of the industry, but for my own thought, that the first thing that government should do is know actually the first issues in Malaysia. That's mean when we talk about renewable energy. Okay, we need to start that because in Malaysia we also have SEDA. So what you told about sustainable agency, so the one that actually work out on the sustainable energy is SEDA, and then the SB is only the one actually the industrial level. That's when they generate the electricity. So we cannot judge them in terms of, because in honestly when you talk about the thing about the we call the industrial people. Okay, you say about the business people. So the thing that you highlight before is about they are making money. Okay, the first thing that you need to understand about sustainability is not only about the environmentals, it's also about the economic and also socials. So when you talk about sustainable energy, it's not only about the climate change. So that the facts that about the sustainable energy, you need to know that sustainable energy is not about only climate change. So that's why when you want to do on the renewable energy, example, you want to come out with the solar panel or electric car EV. So for me, the solar panel is not really green. Some of the myth is green technology is green, is myth, because green technology sometimes not green when you're not really counting the life cycle assessment. That means during you as a youth, when you want to give the idea to the industry or the government on the new technology, you really need to take care about how you retrieve the raw materials, how you want to do this technology, and how you want to dispose it when already have their life cycle, end of the life. So these things is really not be take care about the solar panel. So our government still yet not have the planning on how to dispose to 10, 20 years when already packed with the solar panel. So this thing is really crucial. So we need, you as the youth need to think about when you want to with the idea, you need to take care about DFE, design for environment, or now we call it DFS, design for sustainability. So what you want to do, you need to really take care about what is the environmental impact, what is the raw material you use, what is the waste that generated. And also, it's not only about the gate to gate that you produce the green renewable energy, and then that's it. It's a not good approach. all right, and also you also take care about the social, about how actually when you have a lot of waste, how actually will happen to the economy. So they also will happen in term about the economic skills, how actually when you are the ambassador about SDG7, you talk about affordable and clean energy. So affordable. So the term affordable is something that you really need to take care. Affordable is, what is affordable for you? Affordable is something that when you have that technology, everyone can use it. It's not just only for the rich people. So every one of you can use it with the optimum cost. So that thing is something that you need to think how to actually produce the green technology, the effort, and also clean. Okay.
That is so right. It's exactly what I've been thinking as well. The European Union, the countries in Europe and the UK, they're all currently trying to landfill 100-meter long wind turbines because they installed it 30, 40 years ago and they don't know what to do with it now. I think that is something that Malaysia definitely needs to be prepared looking on ahead, and we need to find something that is more suitable or something that is, that has potential end-to-end life cycle. Speaking of which, perhaps Mr. Muhammad Shukri, you could take this one. What do you think is a source of renewable energy that has the most potential for future growth in Malaysia, particularly?
Thank you, Prasna, for your question. In my opinion, the most potential for renewable energy in Malaysia would be solar. It would be easy solar because we have summer every day, 365 days. But our problem is we have summer and rain. So when it rains, it could not be good for the solar panel, meaning that it doesn't generate electricity as you wish it will do. So, but solar panel on its own is not enough, like I said. So you need to marry the solar panel or solar energy with, first thing is the, we call it storage system, like a battery, because you have this solar power electricity during the day, maybe 10 to 3 o'clock during the day, and then you generate a lot of them, okay, during the day, but you don't actually consume all of them during the day. So you have excess of solar powered electricity, which if you can store in your house, for example, then you can use it for later when you want to use it. Actually, if you have read about Tesla, they have actually come up with a nice way of a greenhouse. They have solar roof, solar glaze roof panel, which will generate electricity. And for the wall, they have what we call power wall, like your power bank to charge your phone. They have this wall in the house that can help to store the electricity you generate from your roof. So this power wall is actually being developed and is actually already sold commercially. If you go to YouTube, you can see some people actually produce YouTube videos that talk about the efficiency or the operation of power wall, Tesla power wall. So you can see that if you can marry this power wall with a solar panel glazed roof, then you have a good solution for a greenhouse. But still, solar panel and storage may not be enough still. So you still need more option for cleaner electricity in the future in the end. Okay, but on your question, yes, I believe solar is the best, has the best potential for Malaysia, because at this moment, the wind turbine that is being developed, that's being used in Germany and Norway, they are used for the high-speed turbine. So meaning that you need to have an average wind velocity about 6 meters per second or above. If you go to Google, you Google average wind speed in Malaysia, you will see that in Kuala Lumpur is about 1.8. It is less than 30% of the optimal number. that you need for the current technology for wind turbine. So that's why universities in Malaysia currently are aggressively trying to do research on low speed wind turbine. When we say low speed, it's about 3 to 4. But actually in Malaysia, we need even lower than that. We need about 2 or less than 2. Then that will be usable for Malaysia. So for now, right now, I would say wind power is not suitable for Malaysia. Geothermal also is not suitable because the site that we locate that has potential for geothermal is actually situated in the bekas Lombong BH5. So normally this bekas Lombong BH5 has houses, has cities on top of it. So we cannot actually go and move people away. So that is something that we are not looking forward to. And then for tidal, in Selat Melaka is out of the question. Is the laluan, is the passage of ship vessel and things like that. On the Laut Cina Selatan is actually geopolitical issues. We are sharing borders with Indonesia, so it could be out of question. So the only tidal location will be near Sabah, but that is also environmental concern. So whether you want to sacrifice your maritime environment for tidal wave technology, but that also is not confirmed you will have it. Okay, so right now, having explored our renewable option with our current technology and current understanding, solar is still the best way forward for Malaysia, but you need to pair solar with storage. And I know that will not be enough, so you have to pair that again with a clean power generation option as well.
Thank you for that, Mr. Shukri. We're running out of time and we have still so many questions to cover. So I'll try to move fast. For the next question, I wanted to ask perhaps Mr. Muhammad Rizal. Perhaps you could let me know I mean, this is a lighter question. What are some major hurdles or some challenges for young people these days in kind of understanding about SDGs, or understanding about the issues regarding the environment as a whole, and what challenges do they face in convincing people about it?
Okay, thanks very much, Prasna. Okay, I think to address the SDGs, I believe the first part about this is actually understanding about the SDGs, the 17 UN SDGs themselves, because we're talking about SDG 7 today, but each SDG won't be able to achieve its objectives without the other. So it all has to work in unison. We can't just particularly focus on one SDG and just ignore the rest of them. So, and that's how we can actually make a better, a more sustainable future. It's not just energy; it's also poverty, it's also geopolitics and so on. And next, I believe if we want to explore SDGs in particular, we shouldn't just look at SDGs on the surface. I think a lot of organizations tend to just use SDG as a logo, or as a just to put a poster up and say that we are doing these kinds of SDGs. We have 3, 4, 7 or 9, but they don't really go in depth. It's not really measured in that sense. For example, we know that SDG 7 is talking about affordable and clean energy, but do we know that they have each different targets? There's 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, I think even 7A, B, and things like that. I can't really remember. And each of these targets has its own indicators, its own measures. And I think this is where it's important, because only if a goal or a target is measurable, then it can be actionable. Then we can do something about it. We have to know where we are, and then we can take action on that. I think the famous saying is that if it can be measured, it can be managed. So these are the kind of things that we also have to have in mind.
Okay, great. I like that. I like what we said. Like, it's very true. I work in the line of carbon consulting. So it's a lot of companies, they're right now, they're transitioning to understanding their greenhouse gases emission. Only then you can know how much you're reducing in the coming 5-10 years if you're committing to something like net zero and such, right? But that is something that is a little bit out of scope for today's discussion. But perhaps maybe we can move on to the next question. Maybe Madam Rohuda, you could take this one. Do you think, I mean, in your area of expertise and your understanding and the current progression that Malaysia is heading, do you think that we will be able to combat climate change?
Right. If you talk about combat climate change, our PM announced by 2050 that we will be a carbon neutral. And then, but announced by KASA, Kementerian Alam Sekitar dan Air, that Minister announced on net zero on 2050. In the first place, we also know that it's not aligned with the PM and also the KASA. So it's a lot of difference between a net zero and also carbon neutral. All right. When we talk about the net zero, okay, net zero is about you want to combat climate change using the first thing you need to how you want to optimize your energy usage in your operations. And then the second step, then you adapt on the RE. And then the last one you do on the carbon trading, right? So this thing is how you want to manage on the carbon. So carbon dioxide is one of the elements that actually that we need to reduce in terms of to achieve the net zero. Honestly, for my opinion, if we start with educations on the culture in Malaysia, is quite far because the awareness on the industry as well as us as a user, you can check on the World Bank record that actually the uses per industry and also the per capita is actually similar. It's about 4,000 something energy that kilowatt hour that we use per year. Actually, it's a lot. So for me, in terms to combat this climate, actually it starts from the culture, from the individual need to alert on this climate change. Okay, so when we want to be alert, we need to be conscious. And then want to be conscious, we need to know what we do. Sometimes we not alert on what we do. Sometimes we just think energy is just come from the TNB. It just come from the fuel and on the transportations. But if you realize that anything that we do, we use energy. Example, how many shoes that you wear, how many clothes that you wear, what is the style that actually that you use. Actually, it's a lot of energy inside your attire. It's how actually the produce on this thing is something that we talk about RE, we talk about EE, but actually that you realize that what we do now, actually we contribute to the climate change. So if you want to moving forward on the climate change, the first thing we need to do is a sustainable consumptions. We have SDG on the sustainable consumptions. We need to aware, is it we use energy, we use our consumption, is it already optimized? Because honestly, when you talk about energy, we talk about the waste. The waste something that in Malaysia, 700,000 metric ton waste produced every day by Malaysia. And the saddest thing is 40% of this waste is actually 700,000 metric ton is only food waste, and then 40% of this food waste is the food that can be eaten. So if you can see there is a lot of energy inside this food. So if you think that the first thing you want to generate on the, I'm not against on the technologies because I'm also the technology on the green but I'm also the engineers. But the main thing is I would like to have something that is not waste that we produce the green technology. Example, it's a wasteful that we will focus on the renewable energy, but we consume a lot of energy. It's something that is not being aligned. So for me, for the youth, you want to move forward, the first thing is we need, as you do, change our lifestyle. to be sustainable consumptions, then you can think on how to do moving forward on to design the green technology or something that can help to reduce the energy. This is my thought.
That's true. Sustainable consumption is important. A lot of times when I have discussion with younger people, they often tell me, "Oh, if you want me to reduce my consumption, let's say I want to get clothes, it's just more affordable for me to get clothes from Shein or from H&M compared to buying from a sustainable brand, simply because it's more fashionable, it's cheaper." Maybe any of you, do you have like I don't mind anyone just chipping in, and any advice to the young people in regards to their consumption this way, just because it's more affordable for them?
Okay, one more thing. When you talk about myth, this one is a myth because sustainable is not by the sustainable materials. Sustainable is start from the pillar that actually start from the reduce or eliminate. It's something that it's not start, okay, I want to be sustainable, I want to buy sustainable shirts. It's not like that. That's why it's a myth. Honestly, it's a myth. So something that we want to be sustainable, is start on first. I get this tips from Datuk Sari Zaini Ujang. They said, okay, for the woman, that ladies, check how many tudung that you have inside your wardrobe. Sure, it's 100 over. They said. So for me, I'm not really care about that. But when I see a lot, my friends, a lot more than 100 tudung inside their wardrobe without their subconscious mind, they buy. Okay, jualan murah kan? Okay, so buy, and then from the Shopee, 11 plus 11. Okay, everyone buy something that you can see that. Okay, every month we have the promotions to buy. Is it necessary you want to buy? So that thing we need to think first, because for me, yes, we can talk about the sustainable energy. It's very good. You want to have the renewable energy. You need to have to produce something. But the first thing is, it we already optimize or not what we have. When I see the numbers on the energy on Malaysia, we use about 4,000. Do not compare with US. Some of us, we compare with US at 12,000. We okay lah, 4,000. So something that you think about, you compare with something, you try to compare with the good one, something that, okay, so they have something about the great energy efficiency on how they manage the energy. For me, actually tadi regarding the shirts, honestly, it's a myth to buy the sustainable clothes. Honestly, I already go to the JPO, sustainable clothes, they say 80% discount. When I see the clothes is 1,000. Using the good bamboo apa kan, so 1,000 ringgit, that's only one clothes. I think it's not a good solutions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you. But again, like you mentioned as well, it's a part of our culture. So when you go on Instagram or you go on TikTok, immediately what I see is, I don't know about you guys, your FYPs, but I always see people, having all those fashion videos, different OOTDs and all that. And I think that really does play a very big role in shaping how young people consume things. It's a very difficult world to say, I want to cut my consumption. Okay, I think maybe that might have been an error. Okay, I'll just proceed. So I think we were down to our last 5 minutes. One question, maybe perhaps all of you can just come in and give your input for this one. Throughout our discussion today, we discussed about how renewable energy doesn't necessarily translate to sustainable energy. We talked about things like nuclear, we talked about things like policy making and regulation, how it impacts how we view sustainable energy as a whole, and what our country can do to adapt to it. Perhaps we also looked at two sides of the coin, the benefits of it, the pros, the cons, the whole life cycle of it. Perhaps in less than a minute or about 1 minute, each of you could just roughly tell me how we can educate the public about the benefits of renewable energy and sustainable energy, while also acknowledging that there are drawbacks in its implementation. Perhaps you could start with Mr. Muhammad Rizal.
Okay, thank you, Rasna. Yeah, I think energy is all around us. We use it in many forms every day, whether we realize it or not. And sustainable energy is definitely gentler on the environment. In general, it produces less waste, less emissions, and also has in a way better economics in the long run. And I think it is not just the impact to the environment that we are looking at. It's also the impact to the people, to us, to the habitats of this planet. Perhaps I can just add, it's one overlooked indirect effect is that if we produce lesser emissions, we also have improved health. As we can see from the recent COVID-19 pandemic and all these lockdowns, we are actually quite a fragile species, just from that impact alone. So I'm sure everyone would like to see yourself and your future generation to live a healthier life as a consequence of this more sustainable energy and technologies. And yeah, not just energy sector, we also have to look at the end use, like Ms. Nur Huda mentioned earlier, on ourselves, how we consume this energy. We have to actually focus on what we need rather than what we want. It's your needs over your wants. To take an analogy, I think if we look at a piece of cake, there's the cake and there's the icing. We can probably have what we want as part of the icing, but the major part of it is what we need. So we can't put too much sugary icing, or it will impact the overall taste of the cake, as an analogy. Yeah, so other areas such as along the value chain, like transportation, buildings, forests, industry, and all this also contribute to the impact of climate change. But I think as what mentioned in SDG is that SDG 7 is a golden thread to all the other SDGs, to bind them together, because energy is used throughout our lives every day, day in, day out. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marizal. I'll move on to Madam Nurul Huda, perhaps.
Okay, for conclude for this thing, for me, the first thing we need to align. So how we want to be success in this SDG, okay, actually on the SDG 7, is we need to align with the politics, okay, with the government. We also need to align with the one that enforcement, okay, that one actually on Bursa for the public listed company, and also the minister also need to be aligned between minister. It's a lot of minister different thought, so we need to be together, and also the industry. For me, these bodies actually, if we work out together, actually we can combat this climate change.
Okay, and just to wrap it up, Mr. Shukri, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just want to stress that in the 1980s, when I was in Sekolah Rendah, the keyword was ozone depletion, penipisan lapisan ozone. And at the time, the whole world agreed that to reduce or to mitigate the risk of ozone depletion, we have to use less CHF, CF4, something like that. CFC, okay. And actually we succeeded in a way that the ozone depletion is no longer a major issue. There are still ozone holes, there are still holes in the ozone, and some years the holes are shrinking, some years the holes are enlarging, but in general we managed to mitigate the risk of ozone depletion in the 90s and in 2000. So what I want to say is we have shown that with a collective agreement in terms of political will, science and technology application, we can actually solve global problem if we are united. So right now, the global war is on climate change, on the sustainable development. So we have to be united on this front to mitigate the worst consequence of climate change. And for that, the voice of youth are very important. You guys will play a very important role in this, our latest war, global war against the climate change. So you guys have to start with your own to develop a culture of using energy less, using energy efficiency, and telling your government or your business on how to do things the correct way, meaning that using clean and correct technology. And having this culture embedded in our society will go a long way in ensuring that our future generation also maintain the same culture, so that the world can actually solve the problem that we are in, which is climate change. So again, use energy less, use energy efficiency, and always think about the right way to do things and tell your government on how to do it. Okay?
Thank you so much, Mr. Shukri. I think we've come to the end of our session today. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Just to wrap it up really quickly, Mr. Shukri earlier mentioned about the Montreal Protocol. It's actually still considered one of humankind's best successes in a fight towards like a cause, and it's a very monumental moment because it is something that is for the environment, which impacts every one of us. If we could do that like in the 1970s, why not again in 2022, right? I think that's something that we're all striving towards with SDGs. I guess just to wrap it up, thank you so much for attending our session today, and see you all for the Q&A session later. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, speakers, for that very informative and insightful session. A lot of myths were debunked about sustainability and the usage of energy. So I hope everyone has learned a lot of new things from the session. Okay, now we will have a quick 5-minute break so everyone can get your drinks or run to the bathroom for a bit. We'll be back shortly to have our Q&A session. Thank you. All right. Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone has returned from their break because we will now be having our Q&A session. So to all participants, if you have any additional questions, you can type them in the chat box and our panelists will do their very best to answer them. So I have a few questions with me, so I'll just read them out and any one of the panelists can answer them. Okay. So the first question is, as a professional, how long do you think nuclear energy will become our main source of energy?
I think it's nuclear, so I will answer it. Okay. How long nuclear will become part of our energy? The question is not easy to answer because we have a few different case studies on it. The shortest case study that I've seen that it takes UAE, United Arab Emirates, to think about nuclear, to decide to go for nuclear, to construct and to get the electricity from nuclear from day one to electricity is about 12 years. Okay, when they doesn't know anything about nuclear, and then in 2009 they award the contract to Korean to build their nuclear power plant, and they have the first electricity, I think about 2020 or 2021 in Baraka. So it took them about 12 years to get the electricity from day one of thinking about it. And then we also have Belarus about 15 years. And then at the same time, we have other countries like Turkey also is thinking about nuclear. So I would say that if we say yes to nuclear now, we could have nuclear power within this decade, within the next 10 years. But right now, we don't have any intention to go nuclear right now because the closest that we have is in 2011, we actually established Malaysian Nuclear Power Corporation, MNPC, which is headquartered in Cyberjaya, and they had actually performed a feasibility study on nuclear power in Malaysia, and they had done a very good job in that regards. They are actually regarded by the UN, IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, to be the role model or the best of the best of their type in the world. So they are always, the staff of MNPC will always call for sharing session around the world. But unfortunately, when the change of government happened in 2018, the then government decided to close down MNPC. So in 2019, we stopped any efforts on acquiring nuclear power in Malaysia until today. So, but if we say yes to today, I think within the next 10 years to 12 years, we could have nuclear power in our mix.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shukri. All right, the next question is, on average, how many years will humankind last when we run out of non-renewable energies?
Nak jawab susah tu. Kiamat je lah habis lah jawapannya.
It's renewable. So as long as the sun shines, you have potential for solar power. And when the sun shines, it creates, pressure drops or pressure difference. You have wind power. And then from the wind power, the rotation of the earth, you have tidal power. So all of this macam Cik Nurhuda cakap lah, sampai kiamat, insyaAllah kita ada potential for renewable energy. As long as the sun shines, then we are okay. Itu nama dia renewable kot. It's renewable every day.
All right, good to know. Okay, so I have a few questions from the chat box. All right, the first question is, this is a bit of a long one. Sustainability is more than simply using renewable energy. It also concerns on energy consumption, which comes from building operations. For example, should a building be operating outside of the intended design? it will be wasting the energy. So how do we advocate for good facility maintenance in Malaysia?
Cik Rizal jawab dulu.
Okay, I think I saw that question already in the chat box. I don't come from the maintenance side, but I think what can be helpful today is that we have AI, IoT. You know, all these technologies have the various sensors and machine learning and things like that. So what we can have is actually what we call as predictive maintenance. You know, when we're using this kind of technologies, we can predict when a certain equipment or instrument is will be bound to failure or damage. Then we can take action before it actually occurs. So I think that's one of the ways to actually help mitigate, waste or excess of spending money when a particular equipment is damaged. Yeah, that's my opinion.
I tambah sikit sebelum Cik Syukri tambah, Dr. Syukri. For me, kalau kita tengok sekarang ni, architecture pun dah join to GBI, Green Building Index. So that's mean in term of the building, actually they're going to, for the new constructions, they need to have consider on this Green Building Index. Okay, so for the maintenance, so for the existing building, I can see that actually the preventive maintenance is the best solutions on reductions of energy efficiency. That means, example, I think more of the building now moving forward is on how to reduce the electricity consumptions actually on the air conditions. So most of them try to using the sensor, and then some of them not setting their building, their aircons into 20 instead of 16. There's a lot of, I can see, initiative industry. Dr. Syukri, we can add on.
Okay, Cik Nuruda. I would say that on top of what Cik Rizal and Cik Nuruda said, I believe maintenance is also about culture. Okay, I like to watch YouTube's videos on Japanese culture. Actually, there are many videos, but one of the videos that stick with me is the day in the life of I think ramen noodles owner, something shop owner. So they show he wake up every day, he set up the stall. But what struck me as something amazing is at the end of the day, he will clean up the shop and wash everything as if is everything starting new lah. I mean the next day is starting new, so they will clean everything up and all the grill will be polished, spotless. So that doesn't happen in Malaysia, I would say. So I think even the small thing like that in Japan, they maintain their shop very, very well. So setiap hari dia akan maintain, dia akan bersihkan. So I think that is a culture that we could emulate in Malaysia. And if we have that kind of culture, appreciation of things that we own, we maintain properly, I think we can spread out the culture and it become a norm in Malaysia to maintain our building, our properties properly. I just seen a video on TikTok recently. They show that Legoland is not maintained as well as others. So I think even if you have an expensive building, even if you have spent a lot of money on your building, making your building beautiful, if you don't maintain it, it will go down in quality, it will be wasted. So maintenance is very big thing. I think that we should develop in Malaysia, good maintenance. So Japanese have a good maintenance culture and we should emulate that.
Right, thank you. I very much agree with your point, Mr. Syukri. All right, the next question. Does decentralizing the energy trading help to address and improve the SDGs?
Decentralizing energy trading.
Yes,
If
this is a
I
question from Ken.
Okay, if I understand correctly, probably he's referring to peer-to-peer energy trading, P2P. If that's the case, then I believe that SEDA actually did a pilot program some time ago involving a few participants, to test out this P2P trading concept. And I think around the world there has been many cases of countries already using this P2P. I think to me it's a good platform because it actually allows you to trade energy between the different participants on different times of the day. So for example, if I'm actually not using much energy during the daytime, but I have solar panel on my roof, I can actually export this to say Mr. Shukri because he's using a bit more energy at that time. So we're allowed to actually distribute within ourselves, within this network, and that's the concept of P2P trading. And we can also make a bit of income when we sell additional energy. So these kind of things can actually help the community. And I think it starts at a smaller scale, within a, let's say, distribution grid, and then you can expand it further to a larger area. I hope that it answers the question. Maybe the other panelists can add on.
I'm not so well aware of decentralized grid, but I agree with Mr. Rizal said. More option to the consumer will be good. So if we want to go for sustainable development, having more option will be good for us to go forward to it, I think. So I'm sorry I could not add more on that, but thank you, Rizal, very good. Shuha tak dengar.
I'm so sorry, I was muted. Okay, moving on to the next question. How can we address the duck curve phenomenon?
Cik Nurulah, saya. Okay.
Very technical questions.
Okay. Duck curve is just a typical, is a pattern of the difference between renewable energy generation and the demand. So meaning that when the sun is shining in the middle of the day, the solar floods the market, but at the evening, solar doesn't generate electricity anymore, but the demand peaks. So you will see the shape is like a duck curve. So how do we address this duck curve phenomenon is it's a little bit tricky with our current technology. The way solar panel is used in Malaysia, we put on our rooftop panel, and then during the noon we generate a lot of electricity from solar panel, and then we feed into the national grid. Okay, so during that day, what we can do is we can ask the TMB or the IPP to produce less electricity from their power plant, because we have some abundance of electricity from solar panel. Okay, so that's one way. So when the solar electricity floods the grid, you ask the grid operator to reduce the power from the commercial power plant. And then when the solar powered electricity reduce, then you can ask the power plant to produce electricity more to cover up the lacking in the supply of the solar powered electricity. So it has to be a two-way communication. When we have a lot of renewable electricity, then the commercial electricity can be on standby, can relax a little bit. And then when when the renewable goes down, then the commercial can cover up it. Okay, and that one thing. The other thing is also, like I said, you can have a storage system. Okay, so the storage system will help to store excess renewable electricity, and then you can feed in when the supply of renewable electricity goes down, deep down. So then you can use capacitor or some system to trigger the stored electricity back into the grid. So it has to be an algorithm that talk to the power plant so that they reduce electricity when they don't need it, and then it has to be algorithm that optimize the input from the stored electricity when the renewable electricity dips down in generation. Is it clear or no? Sorry, I was thinking when I'm talking, so maybe I make it more confused. Okay, good.
Shukri, is it the same concept as peak shaving? Right?
Yeah. Sometimes they call it load changes or load following generation. Yeah, load following, something like that. So that's one way to address the dark curve phenomenon. But it has to be artificial intelligence. It has to be some kind of algorithm that take into account of these different supplies and demands, and you cater to the one that I think has give us the best electricity in terms of tariff and also carbon. Sorry, it's not clear. I know. I wasn't thinking too clearly on this thing.
All right, it's okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have another question from Kenny. In our research findings today, the lower power consumption, the lower power factor is observed in Malaysia. This has caused power wastage. So how do we address this power factor stability issue?
Kenny, apa tu power factor? What does it mean by power factor? I understand power consumption, the lower power consumption, but what does it mean by lower power factor? I'm not clear. Let me check on Google. Maybe power factor.
I think this is quite technical, right? It involves like a real power, apparent power, and so on. I'm also not very well versed. Maybe Mr. Shukri has a better understanding of that.
Yeah, actually, I'm not clear about the power factor. So, Kenny, you can write to me later. Let me try to understand what is power factor. So maybe I can understand what is lower power consumption leads to lower power factor. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm not helping you in this question.
All right, it's okay. We can move to the next question. This is a question for Madam Rohuda. Could you share recognized certificates or degrees which would enable one to venture into sustainability?
Okay, actually, this was a general questions that actually what you want to be competent to. That means sustainability is very big, but the main thing is if you say about the degrees, I believe that most of the degrees in Malaysia actually moving forwards toward the sustainability courses inside their course. Example, one of the university that I'm involved as the industrial panels. So we actually add on inside their engineering degree on the design for sustainability. So for me, every degree that you take, the main thing is how you integrate, understand the sustainability, and how you integrate that thing inside the operations very crucial. So for me, for the competency, you have a lot in the market for the international. Example that I took is for the SEA, Sustainability Excellence Associates, and also Sustainability Excellent Professionals from the International Society for Sustainability Practitioner. So, and also they have a lot of the, you can see inside the market. But for me, recognize or not recognize, it depends on how you get the knowledge and how you integrate inside the operations very crucial than recognize. It's depend what you actually want to do on the certificate. If you want to do as one of the your career growth, okay, you can get that being certified. But the main thing, if you being certified but not know how to integrate the sustainability inside your journey, is useless. So for me, the main thing, understanding on the sustainability. Example, you can know about what is the sustainability issues inside your organization. Like say we talk about climate change, actually a little bit of the sustainability issues. It's a lot of issues, actually in Malaysia. It's about governance. Okay, so the main thing is how you know about the sustainability, how you manage on the economic, environmental, socials, and governance actually is govern all of three elements. So you need to have the good governance to ensure that your economic skill inside organization is very good. You need to have the good governance to ensure your environmental pollutions. You don't have that, you manage your environmental issues. And also you need to have the good governance to ensure that your people, your stakeholders actually comply or you meet their need expectations.
All right, thank you.
Maybe I can just
Yeah,
sorry add on a
yeah,
bit.
sure.
Yeah. I think I agree with Ms. Ruda that when we talk about recognition, what kind of recognition are we looking for? Is it recognized by the employers? Is it by the university or by whom? Because I think if you look at sustainability, there isn't a specific requirement for this, unless you're talking about, for example, if you're a welder, you need a welding inspector certificate to actually qualify to be a welder on different levels. So for sustainability, I guess it is also more about what the substance rather than just the certificate. And perhaps in Malaysia there isn't much options available, but we can see there's a lot of it online, through various MOOCs like Coursera, EDX, and so on. We can gain a lot of information from there, and how we apply it to what we do every day. That's also equally important. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, speakers. This is going to be our last question. So any one of the panelists can answer. The question is, how can SDGs help the world?
Okay, maybe I can start first. Actually, if you bought the SDG, it's about sustainable development goals that actually created by the United Nations, right? To have the goals, we to achieve how to want to be, to have the sustainable development country. Okay, for me, if you are in Malaysia, first, we might think broad, worldwide, but the first thing we need to add local. So if we don't add local, so actually don't focus more on the SDG on how you want to manage the whole world, but how you want to manage yourself, how you manage your family, how you manage your community, your organizations. Then it can become the culture, become to the, you can get the goal that we want. For me, this is my opinion. Start individual, then it can be replicate to your family, replicate to your community, and then replicate as a nation. For me, culture, the first thing is culture. We need to actually change our culture. It's not easy to change the culture. It's very hard to change the culture because we cannot change people. Honestly, we cannot change people because the first thing, if you ask me really, climate change is not main issues in Malaysia. It's not the main sustainability issues in Malaysia. The main sustainability issues in Malaysia is corruption. So, so this thing you need to, as a youth, how you want to become more integrity people, more integrity in terms of yourself and also when you work. Because for me, if you cannot have the integrity, honestly, you talk about SDG 17, you cannot make it. Because actually the whole thing is actually corruptions. So about, you want to have the good result, you need to change first and start with us. Thank you.
All right. Well, would any of the other panelists like to add on before we move on?
Okay, maybe I can go next. Yeah, so I think the question is how can SDGs help the world? So it's quite a big question. So yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that SDGs have to work in unison, together. There's zero hunger, there's gender equality, quality education, decent work, and things like that. So we can't just be looking at one. We have to work on all of them together in unison. And I guess I would agree with what Ms. Erin Huda mentioned earlier. That it is more of a culture. How we adapt these SDGs into our culture. For example, waste. We don't have a culture of recycling, for example, where other countries like in Japan has sorting centers where they divide it into 30 different kinds of waste. We put just everything in one garbage bag and just throw it out. Even if we do sort it, when it gets to certain centers, they just put everything back together. So it becomes a bit pointless in that sense. So we need the ecosystem, we need the culture, and we need this to be our habit. And this takes time. It's not overnight. It's not a few years. It takes a long time to actually adapt into this culture. So I guess being the youth of today, you are the voices, you are the roles. People from the earlier generation like myself, we are ingrained with a different kind of culture. We're still trying to change at the same time, of course. But I guess the youth of today brings the voice of tomorrow. So like what Mr. Shukri mentioned earlier, be bold. Don't be afraid of voicing out, of speaking, of what you think, what you want in this world. Find your passion, build your own passion and pursuit, and don't let other people tell you what you can or cannot do. Thank you.
Thank you, Cik Rizal and Cik Nuruda. Very good. I totally agree. All are very good points. But I would also want to say one thing. SDG is just blueprint. It is prepared by the UN to help address the global challenges of today. So it remains a blueprint until someone pick up the blueprint and act on it. So you guys are the youth of today, so act on it, okay? Help to realize, help to solve the problems addressed or stated in the SDG. So yeah, including most important thing like Ms. Neruda said, corruption. Okay, so do something about it. Don't just stand quiet and be still. So the SDG remains a blueprint until you do something about it. Okay, so it's up to you now, guys.
All right. Thank you very much, speakers, for answering all of our questions. We are now reaching the end of our event. But before we wrap things up, I would like to invite our ambassador, Puteri Liyana Sofea, to give the closing remarks and say a few words.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nashuha, and good evening, everyone. I am Puteri Liyana Sofea, the G17 University Ambassador Consortium, representing from the International University of Malaya-Wales. I would like to take this opportunity as in this closing remark to thank everyone who helped me to make this event a success. First, I would like to thank the panelists of today's event, Ms. Nurul Huda, Mr. Rizal, and Mr. Shukri, for accepting our invitation amidst of your busy schedule to educate us on this topic of how can youth contribute towards a sustainable energy. I'm certain that your expertise, knowledge, and insights do help the audience to think outside the box. I would like to also thank Ms. Prasna to become our moderators for today's event and successfully hosting the panel discussion and supporting this webinar. I would like to extend also my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Asham Pereira. He are not here, but he is the founder of the Road to Rights for initiating this G17 University Ambassadors Consortium. It is such a program that helps the university undergraduates to become the next generation of future potential young professionals. I would also like to thank the G17 Global Task Force, the National Executive members of the G17 University Ambassadors Consortium, my university coordinator, my fellow ambassadors, my committee members, without whose support from them, I cannot even make this event successful and possible. Last but not least, I would like to thank all audience for your support and interactive throughout this event. And we strongly believe that you will give your continuous support in achieving the sustainable development goals in the future. That's all from me. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Puteri, for that wonderful speech. Now I'd like to ask all participants to switch on your cameras for a brief photo session. But before that, if you could all just scan this QR code to give us some feedback on today's discussion. Whether it's positive or negative, we'd love to know your thoughts about today's event. So I'll give you a minute to just scan. Okay, now I'll pass the floor to Aina to lead the photo session.
Okay, is everyone ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3, first page. Second page. Yeah, semuanya juga. Third page. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Aina. Thank you everyone for taking your precious time to participate in our event today. We really hope you enjoyed the session and were able to take away important points on how us as youths can contribute towards sustainable energy for a better future. Thank you again and have a good evening.
Thank you everyone for joining the session today.
Welcome. Thank you.